Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Anwar Sadeek, who's the founder of the Married Our Way movement and author of the book Married Indefinitely. Anwar, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Hey, I'm excited to talk to you because I just love when people take a traditionally known concept and expand on it and make it their own. And Married Our Way movement is such a powerful thing that I know that you are so passionate about. So let's start off with give us a little bit of your background and your entrepreneurial journey. What led you to found this movement, Married Our Way?
Well, I mean, it kind of stumbled across me, you know. I am entrepreneurial in nature, always looking for ways to solve problems, and to find a way to make things a little bit better. And, you know, I started questioning a long time ago a lot of things I was doing in life, you know, from why do I have to go to high school and why college and what's the best investments to make and what careers to focus on. These are always things I always thought deeply about. And I never thought deeply about marriage. I always took it for granted as something that it was just so natural in nature and that you find the one and you get married and you spend the rest of your life with someone by building a life. And I just thought of it as something like that, even though I never really paid attention to other relationships. It's kind of interesting because it's in a way our greatest investment, and our kind of life's purpose, if you will, who you share your life with. You know, when you look at life as being a division of time and energy, and where do you put your energy? A lot of times, marriage is a huge part of that for the remainder of your life.
You put your energy into things that matter.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I always thought that I could just do it right. I took it for granted. I married the love of my life and the one for me, and I had a 5-year marriage that was successful in every way, and it ended. And when it ended, I asked myself, well, where did I go wrong, and what happened, and all of these things. So by being married, I was married for 5 years. I'll tell you a quick story about that. I'm goal oriented, and so I set my life up as like I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to have a successful career by the time I'm 30, and by the time I'm 35, I wanted to have children and be married. And I'm 41 years old right now. And so basically I had this in mind. So I met my previous wife, and you know, it kind of fit the time. I was 30 years old, and this is the one for me, and I made up my mind. I said to myself, can I see myself with anyone else? And the answer was no. And could I look at other relationships and find something that other people had that was more special than what I had? And the answer was no, so it had to be the one. So I started like 6 months after meeting my spouse at the time. I said that this is it. I'm ready. I'm a go-getter. This is it. I go for it. And I asked her to marry me. And she was like, this is a little too short. Let's take our time. So she told me no. So a year and a half passed by. And a year later, I was asking her every single day to marry me, sometimes multiple times a day. Persistent with it. I was always saying, you know, why don't we get married? So I'll tell you, it was on Valentine's Day of 2010. And I said, you know, I've been asking you many times to marry me, and you keep telling me no. And I feel like there's nothing else I have to look for. So I just wanted to get married to you, and this is it. This is it for me. And she's like, okay, well, listen, you can marry me anytime next year. And anytime next year you want to marry me. But don't ask me anymore, and that'll be the answer. And she says, yes, but anytime next year. So I said, okay, no problem. So I quickly looked at my calendar and I penciled in January 1st, 2011. That was the closest to next year that I could get.
Yep.
So that was the day I got married, actually. And 5 years to the date, in January 1st, 2016, I was signing my divorce papers.
Wow.
So, we had this flourishing marriage. Because what happened was I was now 35 at the time. I was 30 when I got married. I was 35. And I said, I was kept pushing for children. You could see how persistent I am by how many times I was asking her to marry me. I was just equally as persistent as wanting children because I felt like that's how my life should grow. And she just was not ready on that path. And I think that finally she made a decision to say, maybe it's something that she needs to back away from and allow me to go my path. And that eventually led to us parting ways. So a lot of times, what I did afterwards, now I've been successful in business. I started 2 successful companies. How could I get this wrong? How can I be so wrong about something I was so sure about? Remember, there was no fighting. We never had an argument. It was just something that it wasn't a traditional kind of divorce. It was kind of like it was Christmas Eve, and she has a Cuban background, and for Cubans in Miami, Christmas Eve is their Christmas Day. So it's all about that day. So we went to her family's house, and on the way there, I said, you didn't invite me to your company's Christmas party, but all the other spouses were there. I wonder why wasn't I invited? And she said, I didn't want to tell you this because of the timing, but actually I want to break from our marriage. And I had known then that it must have been the pressure of what I was going towards and how it was pushing her away that said that. So without fighting, I said, if this is something you thought about and this is something that you believe about, there's nothing I can do about it. And if that's what you really want, then I just want to give you a little bit more time to think about that. And without fighting, I kind of let go of that. And within 3 weeks later, I was divorced.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, it was kind of like a surreal moment because we were the example of all people on how to have a successful marriage.
On the outside.
On the outside.
Yeah.
And in my mind. So it was only in her mind that something was different. So what I did was, what I always do is try to find examples of other people and where they went wrong, and look at the other people. I said to myself, let me look at some other, as an entrepreneur, I was a professor of business at Miami-Dade College for many years. I still teach occasionally. And what I always tell my students is, in entrepreneurship, start with an example of a working company. Don't just go by your theories. Start with an example. Look at somebody that's doing something successful and build upon that. So with the same principle in mind, I said, let me see examples of people that are doing marriage successfully. And I could not find many, if not any, examples that were relevant to time, that were successful, that were flourishing. Mm-hmm. I could not find any examples in my circle or extended circle of people that had gotten it right, that were married for over 7 years, that were still doing well, and still growing and still flourishing. In fact, it looked as a part where it looked to me as people trying to find like a constant work in progress. It seemed to be like something that like this energy pit where you're throwing energy at this relationship to try and make it work, and in the end, it's not working. And I asked many people, well, could you find other examples for me of people that you know that have gotten this right, or examples of marriages that you envy? And I couldn't find anyone that even had examples of relevant relationships that people envied. For example, you can say, well, my grandparents were together forever and ever, or my great-grandparents, or my parents. But when you look at the relationships, that same person looking at their parents wouldn't want what their parents had, because their mom usually had routine. It was very stagnant. There was no growth. It was kind of like they did the same things over and over again for decades upon decades. And where women played a certain role and males played a certain role. So I started looking into what makes things work. And I tell you, Mike, I could not find the true examples. So and then here's one additional part that I mentioned. Even though my wife, even I did nothing wrong, and she did nothing wrong, when she left, all of the income that I built and everything that I built for it, she felt like she was entitled to half of it because the law said she was entitled to half of it. I gladly gave her. The funny thing is I fought for a little bit, and when I say a little bit, I mean 2 days. In my mind, I said, do I fight this? Do I do what everybody else does, or do I just give it to her? And I gave it to her. I said, there's no need for me to fight for this. Put my employees through audits of my businesses to see what they're worth. It's just better just to let it go and start over. And I did. And I'll tell you, that divorce has given me, as far as all the finance the financial hit that I took, or the time invested, whatever the case may be, that divorce gave me far more than it ever took from me.
Wow. Because you took the time to assess and pause and look for lessons, and then when a lesson was learned, you built upon that.
Correct. And so, for example, I went back and I said, well, what is marriage anyway? And why did I even sign a license? Why do I need permission? I asked every attorney, every historian, everyone that I know, why is the state in the business of licensing people? I need a license to drive a car, or, you would need a license to practice medicine or to practice law, whatever the case may be. But why do you need a license to get married? So I found that interestingly, the states before, this is going back, decades and hundreds of years, the states, the United States and other governments, they wanted to control the flow of assets and property. And, the church decided they would go by the church's certificate. So basically women were at some point subhuman. So they weren't all the rights of a male. They couldn't get an education or drive a car, vote, or even own property. The only way a woman can gain asset at the time, when all this started, and this is back in the 1800s and before 1700s and even before that, if you go back to Europe. So the only way they can own property is if they die, if the husband dies and then the children aren't there old enough to acquire the property, the states would just transfer the property to the wife. No problem there. They use the church's certificate because, after all, church marriage was a religious function. It's not a state function. So what happened was there was no problem with that. But when white males started marrying non-white women, the states had a problem with, and it wasn't just black. It was like, it could be Japanese, or it could be any culture. They want to control the kind of licensing for it. So what they said was, we're going to transfer asset, but we want to first prove that both people are white or both people are whatever. So that's where the marriage license was born. It was giving permission based on your requirements. Today, that's mostly irrelevant, but instead of the practice of ending it, the licensing process, they build upon it. The state builds upon it because, of course, it's a function that it has to keep growing. But anyway, so if I took the license away, if I said, okay, let's take the license away, then what is marriage, right? And I came up with, after deep thought and a lot of research, I came up with 4 commonalities, 4 things that you're going to need to have a successful marriage, okay? And those 4 things are usually a public acknowledgement. Now, this spans religion and culture and everything, because I even in China or Japan, places that I've went around the world, they all believe in marriage. Even though they don't always believe in the same way, they all believe in it. So what I found, the common features in all of the practices and religions are, number one, you need a public acknowledgement. So a public acknowledgement can be, this is my person, right? Let's just leave it at that for a second, and not wife or husband. Let's just say, this is my person. Mm-hmm. I'll come back to that. Number two, it needs to be someone that you have intimacy with, right? Someone that you tell your secrets to, right? You trust, mm-hmm. Correct. Number three, sex plays a role in it. Someone that you can have sex with, because you can't just, that's a major part of marriage.
Yep.
And number four, a shared belief. There has to be a shared belief of what marriage is. Okay? Now, that differs amongst time, even in the same religion. If you go back into Christianity and you look past time where Solomon had like 700 wives, and the religion itself and culture itself has allowed for the fluidity of marriage. And I think that we're coming to a time where we're looking at it from a today's perspective and see what is relevant to time. Obviously, having 700 wives or husbands are not something that's irrelevant to this time, but now we're at a different point of where marriage is. So those four things: you have to have a public acknowledgement, you have to have someone that you tell your secrets to and you trust, and that someone that you there's a sexual relationship with, and you have a shared belief, whatever that shared belief is. Now, if you have all four of those things, you have a marriage. The same rules apply. You can't cheat. You have to, this is your person. All the rules apply. So if you're missing any one of those things, then the marriage won't work. And then it's not a marriage. So it has to have all four of those points. So then I said to myself, well, let me look back then on relationships that I've had in the past that all four of those things existed, all four of those points. And what I found out was that I've actually been married a lot more times than I thought I'd been married. It was kind of, we from high school, from the point when you're in high school and you feel like this is your girlfriend, and this is why I said this is your person, because we have different names for these things. This is my girlfriend or my boyfriend or my fiance or my, it's kind of these levels of commitment, but it's all the same thing, right? It's your public acknowledgement. We don't like to view marriage that way, but that's exactly what it is. And so I've had relationships in the past where there was a definite public acknowledgement, there was sex, there was intimacy, and there was shared belief. And at the time, the shared belief was, hey, this is going to be forever, wherever it is. And it, of course, didn't end up that way. But what I do know is that I've had more than one marriage if I look at it in those terms. So once I had that, I said, okay, how much of your relationship, I started sending out surveys for different people. I was like saying, how many times have you been married based on these kinds of guidelines, giving some guidelines. And it turns out that people who've been married a lot more times, if they don't call it marriage, they call it relationships. They've been married a lot more times than they have not been married, or that they believe. So I want marriage to be something that is special in what it is. So right away, I started thinking about it, and I said, what solves the problem, what people are scared about is the marriage license, not the marriage. What solves the problem is letting people be married our way, showing the commitment in a way that their belief systems will be on par with their commitment. So if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and it's a comical term for me because I see people in their 40s and 50s and they're talking about girlfriend and boyfriend. Yeah, right. That's kind of a high school term to me. Yeah. But and I said that if I can let people know the guidelines of it and create something that they can work at, their marriage will work for them instead of they working for their marriage. Whoever you are. So I created a 7-point document where it's so easy. If some people feel that they need to sign something, and I made it available. It's called Married Our Way. I consulted with over 14 pastors and 24 attorneys just to see if the wording was right, making sure I don't have any, I don't get in any trouble to anything, and I don't conflict with anyone's beliefs. And I created a document for it so that people can use it. And if you look at marriage, and the reason why I love marriage so much, the reason why I think that people should encourage themselves to be in marriage is because true love is admiration for someone. And admiration is a sense of your personal growth. This person has something of value to me that brings me closer to being the person I want to be, or growing as an individual, or having flourishing. Like, this is a person that can bring me flourishing or growth. So I had those two terms there, flourishing and growth, because that is the two reasons that I figure are the best reasons to be married. You don't need both. You only need one of those. But if you have both, that's even better. And what that also means is that, you know, there may be a time where growth ends and where flourishing ends, right? So what then do you do? Do you continue to work like people tell you to do and work at your marriage even when it gets tough? Or are we living a lot longer? Like, you know, when marriage, these concepts come about, people were living less than 30 years old. They were, you know, life expectancy was 28. Now people are living to 80. So they're living like 3 and 4 life expectancies, you know, and maybe the concepts that were relevant at one point are now need to be a little bit upgraded to be more relevant to time. So people don't feel like they're constantly failing, or they're stuck in a marriage they don't want to believe in, they don't want to be in, and that they can maximize their growth and flourishing in life. So I had to do that to say that marriage is definitely, it's going to be indefinite. It's for an unspecified amount of time. Now, Mike, all the time I'm doing this, all the time, this is the last 5 years of my work. All the time I'm doing this, and countless interviews and surveys, I have yet, and I tell people, because the first criticism I get is that I was hurt. I'm just hurt, and that's why I don't believe that marriage, you find the one and you spend the rest of your life with that one. A lot of people say that I'm hurt. I'm not hurt. I actually am extremely happy, and I'll tell you why. Because I found the one. And finding the one is finding yourself. It's finding, if you're religious, it's the God within you, or if you're spiritual, or if you know, it's looking at your soul. However it is, it's your journey through your lifetime and then beyond. So I felt like the one thing that I had, the mistake I made when I was married to my previous wife, and by this we're just going to go with the fact that marriage was the licensed marriage, but that's just one example. So when I was married there, I completely lost myself. I completely lived life for my wife and lived life to try to make her happy. I was part of the whole happy wife, happy life trend of thought, and I completely lost myself. And how then could I be a good inspiration or good personal growth or good flourishing for anyone else if I've completely lost myself? I realized if I'm going to do marriage right, I have to first love the person I am and love me, because I can't be anything for anyone if I ever lose myself. So realizing that I am the one for me, I am my soulmate. I am the God within me. I am the soulmate within me. I am the love of my life. I also simultaneously realize that everyone else has to love themselves first.
That's a pretty big realization, because I feel like when you hear the phrase, I'm looking for the one, or is there one for me, it's me saying that looking outward to other people, whereas you're proposing that to find the one, you must first be the one and come to grips with that. And that's a inner work. That is something that now you become solid in your own self, and then now you can start moving forward. Is that a little bit of what you went through in that process?
Yeah. So when exactly. after getting a divorce, I really didn't know anything about myself. As strange as it sounds, I completely lost myself. So, you're sleeping with someone in the same bed the whole time, you're living your whole life, and then all of a sudden you're on your own, and you're kind of like dropped onto an island, and you're kind of saying, well, what do I want to do? Mm-hmm. Or where do I want to go? And what do I like? And it's so strange, Mike. It's kind of like, I don't even know what I like to eat anymore, because I don't even know what I like to do with my time. All of a sudden, I have all this time. All I was doing before was making someone else happy. Now I can look internally and ask myself, what are some things that I like? I realized that I grew up. I was a C student in high school. I was a pretty good college student, but only because I love business and entrepreneurship. But not even a great student, I would say, just pretty good. And I never read the great books of our time, and I wasn't a good reader for a long time ago. And then when I got a divorce, I realized how much I love reading. I just love reading now. It's just something like I will go back and I read books and constantly now, and it's just it kind of lets me look at myself and be in my own thoughts and grow within myself. I love long walks. I love going to cities. When I have some time off, I will go to a new city like Philadelphia or New York or anywhere. I would just love to walk around the city and kind of take in the local community and kind of look, and around the world, by the way. I've traveled to over 55 countries already since my divorce. And I just go to the city and just take in their culture and take in their food and all the good things about them. So I realize I like that about myself. I'm an adventure taker. And I realized something: I don't like to drink, although I used to drink all the time with the guys on happy hour and stuff like that, because that's kind of like what you do. I don't even like that anymore. I kind of look at it as like a waste of my time constantly.
You've come through quite the... Even to this point of what you're describing, you've come through quite the journey of self-realization of some key points, which is what marriage was initially what you thought of, what it turned out to be. You realize things about yourself. You realize things about becoming the one before you could find the one. I have a question, because it's making me, if I can wrap all that up in this first section so far. You said that you have run several businesses and have taught and continue to teach school. So the way that I am hearing you speak is you don't just do things on the surface to check the box. You go in and you unravel and you teach and reassemble. So that's what you've done now with this realization. You didn't set out one day from age 6 to be a marriage coach. You were living your life, and then these events happened. You have the way about you to analyze and assess. And at some point you decided, you know what? I'm formulating these concepts and ideas for myself, and it is so liberating to me that I now need to feel compelled to take it to the world. Is that a good assessment of where you've come so far?
Yeah, that's exactly where it is so far. And I don't know where I know that there's two motivations in life at its core, and that's love and fear.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that people get into marriages a lot of times out of fear of being alone, out of fear of I don't know, growing old alone or something the case. Maybe they have love for someone, but it's more guided in fear. Whereas if you love yourself and you are the one for you, then marriage is something that's great. It's a great experience because you can grow in ways that you can never imagine growing before, and you can reach senses of flourishing that are. It's one of the great human experiences that, we're here for. As a spirit, if you're very spiritual, it's hard to have feelings and emotions when you're a spirit because you don't feel real anything. But when you're a human, you're a spirit having a human experience, all of these emotions matter. They all are something that you really feel and you really get a sense of. And so that's why I don't say like life is about happiness. I think life is about flourishing. And there's no greater way to do that than being married, because you get a sense of the person that you're with, if you're married the right way, is your number one source of growth and flourishing. And if that's not the case, then you're just not married to the person.
Yeah.
You just keep going through the universe, through life, loving yourself.
So when you were beginning to formulate these concepts and ideas for your own self, I'm sure you were, explaining them and, almost like testing them to your family and friends, where, people were like, oh, you got divorced. I'm so sorry. And you're like, well, maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe it's a growing experience, or let me test this idea. And like you said, you were interviewing and testing from pastors to attorneys. Well, what were your friends and family? What was their reaction when you started bringing these concepts to, almost to formulate this movement of married our way and married indefinitely?
So the first person that I go to is my mom, who is the most wonderful person in the world. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people feel that way about their mom. And the first thing she said to me was, don't feel that way. It's just that you didn't find the one, and the one for you is out there. Mm-hmm. And I said, Mom, I respectfully disagree. I don't think you're getting what I'm saying. I am the one, and marriage is indefinite. It's all about your personal journey. And if you look at the relationships that I had, and I showed all the things, I said, look at all these relationships. If you look at a typical boyfriend and girlfriend, and then you look at a married couple, what is the difference in rules? They have the same rules, right? Culturally, spiritually, within the relationship, everything is the same. So why is it different? What makes it different? You can live together, you can have sex, you can have, a future, you plan on being together, you're making a public acknowledgement, you have the same belief. Why is it not marriage? Why is it not calling it what it is? So when people think that they've had several relationships and they haven't found the one, what they really have was they've had several marriages, not realizing they're the one.
Yeah.
So and today, to answer that
it's
question,
almost like, have you ever heard that story, Acres of Diamonds?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I heard that
it's
story before.
Your comment right there made me think of that, where it's like, maybe I've had that all along, or maybe it's been right under my nose.
Right. Yeah. And, I think that we have our senses of reality based on a lot of our, like I would talk to women and from and I hate to generalize because I don't want to generalize at all, but just as a common trend, I have found that women in other countries, they have no aspirations when it comes less aspirations when it comes to themselves, more than women have decided, I just want to find a good man and have children and be a stay-at-home mom. Well, in a progressive society like in America, even so here that's relevant, but sometimes the role has changed. It's not like our grandparents where the women kind of stay home and they didn't have any friends, they couldn't go anywhere, and the men had separate roles. Women would cook and do their things, and today women are completely equal to male in every single way. And yet some of the things on career aspirations, on family, women believe that they have to choose. And men also, by the way, believe that they have to choose. Well, sometimes I have to choose my career, or I have to choose I want to be a wife or something like that. But then they'll still have relationships in terms of like, this is my boyfriend, this is my girlfriend, but I'm not going to get married right now because I'm not ready for that. It's comical to look at the rules, because they are married, and if they realize what they're doing, and if they realize what the principles are of marriage that I talk about, then the strategy they use will help them be a better entrepreneur, a better successful at life, at flourishing, and people will be part. You see, here's the thing about and I've been successful in business to a certain extent. To me, it's if I had to go back as a child and think about my life, what I would dream of to be when I grew up, I would never dreamed where I am today, and I would never thought that I could write down so many dreams to be so fulfilled as I am entrepreneurially. Mm. And so I'm very happy with that in the way that it is. And I want other people to kind of like understand that they can also have all of these. You can never even know where life takes you. But if you really love yourself and you feel that relationships work for you and be part of your growth, then they will never be part of your suffering. They will never be part of your pain. They will be part of your flourishing.
Because of your perspective.
Correct. It's all about your perspective.
Yes. So okay, go ahead and finish that thought.
Yeah, real quickly, I just wanted to say that even in the boyfriend and girlfriend relationships that I've asked, I found that this is like a rule that I found of less than 20%, and this would be interesting. I want to repeat the study and see what happens when I ask more people, but less than 20% of the time of invested in a relationship was actual flourishing. That means over 80% of the time in a relationship is spent in struggle, in loss of flourishing, in loss of personal growth, of constant fighting, constant internal battle that you're having in a relationship, and people realizing they can't work. I would talk. So to give you an example, if somebody has been in a relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, or married, for 10 years, less than 2 of those 10 years, year and a half, have been actual flourishing, actual growth and happiness. That also means that 8 years have been lost to time, and that is what I'm trying to take away. I'm trying to get marriage to be what it is, where you can flourish the most from it and go on about life, not hurting people, but understanding that there are more things that our spirit has to accomplish, and now it's best to part ways if it is true that is the relationship's end. The end doesn't mean something bad. The end means there's a new beginning.
Yes. So when you were beginning to formulate these ideas for yourself, and then just in conversation would come up with friends and family, I'm certain that you had people that were in relationships start to ask your advice. So how did that begin to move down that path for you?
So overwhelmingly people disagree with what I say in terms of the my view on marriage and my how I would love people to have relationships, because I want people to have relationships with themselves first, and then if you're going to have a commitment to somebody else in any form, that should be marriage. If you're going to do it right. And then, so it doesn't play into the cultural norm at the moment. So it has been not so well received, and that's why the message has to get out there at a better rate, because it'll surely make sense. But there has been people that actually benefit tremendously from it. And I have gotten the responses of "Thank you so much. I'm so glad we spoke." Because my interviews on marriage turned into coaching. I didn't want to be a coach. I didn't want to be a coach. What I wanted to do was understand marriage for me, right? And my interviews of people that I was doing to understand marriage for me turned out to be coaching sessions for them, whoever they were. So, I would see. I'm going to give you an example of a younger woman. She's about 30 years old, and she was working in a kitchen and cleaning tables and being a waitress. And her husband at the time was doing the same thing, and they were together for 3 years in a marriage, and she got to the point where she didn't want to do it anymore. She didn't want to feel like she was giving up on her marriage, but her husband didn't want to do anything else and was holding her into a position where she could never progress in her personal life. She just saw a future of continuing to work in the kitchen, which is not a problem, by the way. If that's what people want, it's an honest day's work, and I love an honest day's work. But we're here for a short amount of time on this planet, so it's best to kind of, at least if you're not getting fulfillment for it, try something more. So it was her dream to go to law school and to become a lawyer. But she was always told that by her husband, like, you can't do that. That's not going to happen for you. It's just too hard. And, you're a waitress and, you're 30 years old. It's over. And it would kind of like hold her back in that sense. So I started coaching her and understanding why is she staying in a relationship. If it's not something that's personal growth, and if it's not something that's flourishing, what keeps you there? And that coaching and that understanding of talking to her and getting her to understand that she has to love herself to be the best version of her, to be the best wife she can be, the best person. She has to love herself. And what does her soul tell her to do? Her soul tells her that go after her dreams. So she began taking courses at college, finishing her bachelor's degree, taking her LSAT exam, eventually going through a divorce. And now she is starting law school this year on a full scholarship to go to law school. And so she starts in another 2 months or so. And she calls me all the time, and it's like constant, like, she's now, she had left her relationship a few years back. She's now in another relationship where she lives with her boyfriend, she calls him, although I give them respect and call him her husband, and I told her to call him his wife. And she understands now that she has to love herself, and she has to continue to grow and flourish. And if not, she encourages her current husband to say, although they're not licensed married, they're married our way, she encourages him to continue to grow and in himself, even if it leads him, the marriage to separate, it's okay because the time together has been one of great growth and flourishing. And so she's so happy. She's found the one. She's no longer feels guilty about not loving herself first. And when you truly love someone in the sense that you want the best for them, that's how you're the best spouse in the world. So yeah. She's learned to do that, and she thanks me all the time for having this kind of conversation with her, because now her current husband, even they know they're both on the same page now. Even they know that when it's time to go, they will go their separate ways, and they will always be friends as much as they can. And if they will always look back on this time and they'll say every day they use the strategies that I mentioned to them, and it's either going to work for them or they're going to be best of friends and move on.
When you mention lessons and strategies, it makes me think of this. I'm sure that when you first started formulating this in your own mind and experience, and then now you start working with people, and because you just kind of fell into it, coaching them, have you found new nuances to your initial thought processes that you've maybe learned a lesson or learned an additional strategy only because when you started talking with and working with people, it started to bring it to light and clarify any new perspectives as you've gone along?
So the initial four requirements for marriage, to have all four, are still there.
Yeah.
It's still the public acknowledgement, it's still the intimacy, the sex, and the shared beliefs. What happens during the course of a marriage is that one of those four things always changes. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of time. Sometimes sex stops happening as much. Sometimes intimacy is shared with other people first. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people don't want to acknowledge that they're actually married when they meet a new person. And sometimes the beliefs change. So the strategies that I had, like I said, okay, well, this is a coverall. It has all these things. How do I know I want to stay married? Well, you have to keep looking into those four pillars of marriage and say, do we still share the same belief? Do we still is intimacy still is still a thing for us? Are we proud to call ourselves married? Is this marriage serving me? And the cracks start to break when those things happen, when we're not on the same page on all four things. And a lot of people will say, finances is one of the killers of marriage. And I don't necessarily agree with that first and foremost, because I've traveled the world and I've seen people with dire finances. Like, you would not say that, that they are rich by any means, but they stay together. And the reason why is because the pillars are still there. So finances can strain the pillars, but the pillars are what matter. They hold up the marriage. So the strategies aren't, let's get our finances together. That's not the strategies. The strategies are now are coaching towards analyzing. First of all, realizing that marriage is indefinite, realizing that I am the one, and now I get the joy of being married to this person. Let's analyze our pillars. I cannot make my spouse be responsible for my own personal satisfaction of myself or my own love for myself. That's my job.
There's an old saying that I think fits right there. And maybe you've heard this before, but you need to be an active participant in your own rescue.
Absolutely agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah. You can't just go, spouse, fix me, or do this so that I feel this way. You need to be that active participant. I think that's a really big realization, and that ties in with your thought about being the one so that you can find the one. Right.
So it breaks down it's not very complicated on how marriage is so important to you. It can be very simple. It's a love for yourself, and it's just that pillar of, sometimes you just need someone to flourish with. Sometimes you just need someone to tell jokes to, or to spend time with, and it just fulfills your life in many ways. And that's all it needs. And other times, people, it's hard. Our reward systems internally are based on growth. How are we feeling like we're a better version of ourselves tomorrow and the next day, and, by staying present, of course, but how am I feeling about myself today? And how do I feel, how I've grown? Maybe I'm healthier. Maybe or maybe I'm looking at myself and I'm saying I'm unhealthy. I need to start, working out more. And my spouse is doing, drinking and partying, and their habits are going to a different way, in a way that it's straining our pillars, our belief systems, our growth. So, when that goes on, it's an honest conversation to yourself, because the hardest part of a marriage is not in the beginning. That's the easy part. Yep. Loving someone, those reward systems feel good instantly. The hardest part is knowing when to leave a marriage. And that's where coaching strategies are so important, like having a coach, because a coach can let you look at yourself and
that third party perspective.
And be honest with yourself about the where you are, and letting you be responsible for your own happiness and your own sense of fulfillment. So it's not like this: my spouse is going out and he's drinking, or she's drinking, or she's going to clubs. All of a sudden, she likes going to clubs. She has her own flourishing to do, or he has his own flourishing to do. It's my job to focus on the person that I am. I can't control anybody else, but I can control the person that the flourishing and my relationship with my spirit, and that's how I want to look at it.
So when you started thinking about and formulating these pillars and these specific strategies, did you ever have a time whether it was in your own life or someone you've coached, where you started going down a path and it was not wrong or a failure, but you almost hit a roadblock? And it was like, you know what? To get through this, we need to approach it a little bit differently than what even you had initially thought of it as. Have you found any ways and times where you have now enhanced and grown in what you initially thought, and then now that resulted in an even better clarification of that same pillar? Nothing really changed, but now it became more real.
One of the things I had to grapple with is the use and the real understanding of divorce. Mm-hmm. Now, it's such a bad term to say it. It sounds like such a horrible thing, like a failure or like something that didn't work out. Or it's hard to say that you're going through a divorce or you've been a divorce and not get a sad look or someone say, I'm sorry, and, someone to sympathize with you or to sympathize with your suffering. So it's been so difficult for me to communicate the thought of divorce being something good. It's something that when it's not working from you, when you have something toxic around you and it's hurting your spirit, letting that go is not bad. It's good. It's good for you to kind of let go of these things. So I go back and I look at our religious books across the world. All of the religions and all the great books, almost all say that there's life after, that, like it doesn't end at death. It keeps going, right? That you are infinite and that your energy is infinite and that you will continue going on. And if you look at life that way, it's a blessing, and it's a sad part too, because there comes a point where your spirit has to leave this world and go to somewhere else, or you leave and you dance amongst the stars, infinitely. So letting that be something that's in our own human lifetime, something that's welcomed and something that's an achievement. That's a hard thing to communicate because, and it doesn't have to be hard, by the way. It's only hard because we look at divorce and we look at separation as something that's sad, but it's kind of the way it is. It kind of keeps going. This is the way, our spirits and universe and the way it works. It continues moving. So, to answer your question, the difficulties that I found is communicating that divorce is first of all an achievement. It's not a failure. And
that's a big point.
Yeah, and if you have grown with someone as much as you can, and you have given all there is to give, you've received all there is received. You've made an achievement. You've made a staggering achievement. That you've grown as much as you're going to grow with someone, and to love yourself and to love them more is to allow them to continue growing on a path that's going away from you.
It's kind of like when you say it that way, you haven't failed. It's a good thing. It's a moving on achievement. It reminds me of that saying, you either win or and people go lose. No, you win or you learn. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you learn, and that's a great thing. I a lot of times, Mike, I talk to older people, people that are in the older times, closer to their end here. And one of the great regrets that I hear is like, I didn't live now, and I should have left this person earlier to kind of like pursue my passion or to have a different experience. It's such a blessing to be alive. It's such a gift to have this experience. And it doesn't have to be one of great suffering. It could be one of great adventure. And Helen Keller said, life is daring adventure. The daring adventure, or nothing at all. And so I want people to understand that, if you truly love someone, if you truly love yourself, then you want the best for yourself and you want the best for that person, even if you're not around, and especially if you're not around anymore.
Mm-hmm. Let's think about now, getting into some specifics of maybe responses or pushback you get from your clients, not even pushback, but questions. And I know you talked about a license, that piece of paper. Do I need a state license to consider myself married according to society? And you've touched on that. One question that I have about that is, what do you say to clients who say, yes, Anwar, but we need that legal representation for other benefits like insurance or like other types of recognizable benefits. How do you coach them through that mentality?
Okay, so that's a very good question, and I'm glad you asked the question. I have no problem, first of all, with the state licensing. To me, that's a government entity, okay? And we live in a world of laws, and we respect the laws as best we can. What I'm going to say is that what you do first is to sit and analyze if you really need something and if it's going to work for you. So, for example, I've coached people who are in the military, and they have they get additional benefits if they're married and their spouse gets benefits. Mm-hmm. They get extra funding, and in that case, it's beneficial to them for that reason. I've coached another couple right now that I'm actually coaching now that are. She's the woman is American and the husband is Israeli, and she has to get he lives in Israel, and they have to get married to get so he can come over to the green card to come to the United States. And then there's cases like you said in insurance. Now I will tell you that that's something that's changing because I had a relationship after my marriage to a wonderful person. Her name is Shayla Sandoval. She's amazing. And she, at the time, because I'm an entrepreneur, I don't have, I have my own businesses. She had a job working in a corporate job, and she claimed me as her insurance. We never had a license, but she claimed me as a spouse for insurance. So I know that's something that's changing. But if you're in that case that you're a job field that's saying that we only will give you insurance if you have the state license, mm-hmm. then by chance go for it. Get the license, but make it work for you. Because understand something, that the government is there to work for you. You're not there to work for the government.
You're almost saying that the Married Our Way agreement, the document you mentioned, becomes an overlay so that it's the overarching mindset to build that deep relationship and the intimacy and all of those things. But then if there's other areas in life where, like you said, the military, or you want to take advantage of benefits, then there might need to be that piece of paper so that you can also take advantage of those.
Yes. What I don't want, Mike, is I don't want people to feel like my marriage is not real because I don't have a license.
Yeah.
That's not true. Yeah. Your marriage is real once you have that commitment and you're standing on those 4 pillars. That is a marriage, regardless of whatever you call it. That is a true marriage, and it should be part of your growth. If you need a state license, you should have the conversation with your spouse and say, do we really need this? Is this something that we're really that? It could be. I can tell you right now. In the cases that I've studied, it's far more harmful than it is helpful in most cases. Mm. And what people don't do is ask the questions ahead of time. So not a lot of people will say, well, just get a prenup. A prenup is a fool's errand. And anyone who gets a prenup thinking that's going to save the day is going to find out the hard way that only complicates things, because now there's ways to come back and they're costly in the beginning and they're costly when they're challenged at the end. If that's what you're going to feel is what's going to hold you together, then or protect you, how about not have it at all and just let your relationship protect you? And if you do choose a licensed marriage, just ask yourself the questions on what are you getting into and what are your goals for doing so. And I think that conversation needs to happen with every couple. Like I said, there's people that call themselves boyfriend and girlfriend, and in my mind, they're married. There's a lot more people married than in the world than they believe. But if they're going to get a marriage license, let it work for you. Yep. That's what I say to people.
Good. And what do you say to people that you work with and coach? Before I commit to that relationship, that marriage relationship, I want to live my life to the full. I want to, squeeze out every bit
That's a funny statement, Mike, because you know what? How is that living your life to the full if you're not doing it? I can tell you right now, and this is something that I realized, that the richest in life, all the richness that you feel in life directly comes from your relationships with other people.
Yeah.
And you can have a lot of money, and also with the relationship you have with yourself and your own spirit. You can have a lot of money. You can have a lot of things. You just accumulate things, but you won't feel it. You won't feel it unless you have these great relationships with people. And how can you live life to the full, Mike, if you're not living it with great relationships? I'll tell you, great friendships are something of the most enriching relationships that I have. And if I have the chance to be married to someone, how much more intense and richer can my life feel? I tell people that if they feel like they have to live their life to the full beforehand, they'll never live their life to the full.
Yeah.
The only one way to live your life to the full is to fully love yourself and to be married to someone that you admire. Now, that is the most fulfilling life I could ever imagine for someone.
Yep. That right there is almost a drop the mic moment right there. That's awesome. So what about the concept? Let's kind of back up a little bit of, what people would initially think. How do I find the one for me? I know you talked about, being the one and working on personal development, but then once that is done, now how do you go about finding then that one to be in a relationship with?
Okay, so that's something I want people to understand. We have like certain triggers or certain emotions that we go through. One of the best ones that we have is loneliness. And loneliness is a very interesting emotion because it makes you feel like you want to be with someone else. Part of survival, you're missing out on something. But loneliness is a very powerful emotion because it allows you to think about it can be used in a way to allow you to grow. So I don't want people to think of loneliness as something that they have to run away from and they have to run into the arms of somebody else or go hang out with friends that they don't want to even hang out with or go to happy hour like me. When I was lonely, I called friends up that I didn't even like to drink. I still do occasionally, but it's not something I want to do often. And but I would call up friends. I would go to parties I was invited to that I didn't even want to go to. I would go to happy hours I didn't want to go to, because I just didn't want to be alone. Loneliness is the best way to find the one. So it's a way for you to really think deep about what are some things that you wanted to do. So like, for example, I've always decided I wanted to, I always was fascinated by comedians. I always said, I would wish I could be a comedian. So when I was lonely, whenever I get lonely, even till today, you know what I do? I write down some jokes. I write down some things, some materials that I can probably use. I maybe go for a walk or join a run club like I like. Or look for things that I've been thinking about doing, like scuba diving, which is awesome. If you haven't done it, it's great. And book clubs that, like I said, I learned that I love books. And what you find is that in loneliness, you ask yourself, what are some things that I've been meaning to try that I haven't tried? And when you do that with people, whatever those things are, from traveling to book, to fitness, to going to church, or doing anything that you're asking for, you're going to find other people that also have the same passion. So loneliness, finding the one, loneliness is one of our best strengths to find the one. It means, what do I want to do? Let me use this emotion. Let me not run from it. Let me embrace it. And let me see, what are some things I've been meaning to do, and let me do those things. Because those leads, that asking yourself the right questions leads you to having the better relationships with others. If that makes sense.
It totally does, and it really helps to clarify, I think, what people should be keeping in mind, perspective-wise. Because I think that a lot of people, too, would say to you, Anwar, we talk about a new perspective in relationship in how you define marriage. And then the typical end of that is divorce. So is it healthy to think all the time or frequently about divorce?
Ends are one of the things that scare people a lot, right? Because they think of an end as an end, whereas I think of an end as a new beginning. In my personal life, I think it's healthy to think about death often. And people will say to me, well, why do you think about death? Mm-hmm. When you do think about death, you think about life differently. All of the things that you stress about, all of the things that you see you're going through. And if you could die tomorrow, you have no concept of it. You have no clue of it. Is whatever you're stressing that serious? Is it that important? And when you have that perspective in mind, you learn to enjoy your day more, because I'm not guaranteed tomorrow. So if I think about death, then I say, hey, I need to live the moment the best I can, right? To grow as much as I can, to do life right the best I can. When you do a relationship the same way, you appreciate the relationship much more. If you think about divorce constantly, because it's something that can and will happen, it may very well happen, then you learn that I have to enjoy my time with this person, because they're not here for me. They're here for their human experience. And wherever life takes them, I don't know how long I have. I just want to make every day count. I want to make every moment grow. So I think it's actually healthy to think about divorce in a way that gives you perspective on not taking for granted people are always going to be there. I had a couple, the one couple that I was coaching, and they always felt like they don't have to work through their problems. They don't have to work through analyzing anything, because they're going to be married forever. And one spouse or the other would take it for granted, like, marriage is forever, so I can kind of do whatever I want to do, or I can take a lot of things for granted. But when you bring up the topic of divorce, is one of those real and achievements that you can make, and you can get there pretty quick. And it keeps you on your toes a little bit better. It lets you be a better spouse today in the moment and not take anyone for granted, because every individual spirit, everyone is there on their own path, and they have to find their own love for themselves, and that can change at any moment. So we want to think about that constantly. It's very healthy, and I think it's one of the most healthiest things you could do for your marriage is to think about divorce constantly.
Well, wouldn't it be similar to not obsessing, right? But considering. So you don't want to obsess about wrecking your car because you're going to drive into oncoming traffic, but you want to be aware that you need to keep your eyes straight on the road, keep your both hands on the wheel, keep a constant speed. But yet you're aware that an accident could happen in the same way as a possible negative consequence or new beginning in a relationship. You don't want to obsess over it, but you need to recognize that it could happen. And if that is something you do not want to happen, then the natural inclination would be, what are you going to do to make sure that it doesn't happen?
Correct. And by the way, I don't know that there's anything that I can think of that is healthy to obsess about.
Right.
I don't think being obsessed with something is necessarily the key in any one thing. Being aware is what's more important, and finding the balance of it. Yeah, I don't want people to constantly be. I just want people to be aware that the end of the relationship is always there, but nothing to obsess about. It's actually something just to be aware of, so you can enjoy it better. Just like your life. It's if you have a life that you want to live to the full, do it now. Do the things that you want to do now. If you have a chance that you want to take in business, if you want to have to go to another country and see Rome or China or Japan, do it in a way that you can do it now, because you may not have forever. You may not have, tomorrow. So you shouldn't obsess, but you should always be aware.
Right. And if that is an outcome that you want, then what are you going to do to make sure you get it? And if it's an outcome you don't want, what are you going to do to make sure that it doesn't happen? And what I just described there is kind of like what, you would hear, self-awareness or, looking within yourself or, personal development, things like that. Well, should people work, like quote unquote, work at staying married, striving at that or grinding? What are your thoughts on that?
So that's a good question that I have, because everyone that I speak to about marriage talk about it like it's this grueling type work, this grueling job that you have to do, and it's tough, but you got to work at it, and you kind of make it. You should constantly work towards being the best version of yourself, but a relationship with someone else shouldn't be hard work.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, it should just be honest work, not hard work. If you're working too hard, if you're forcing to try to make something work in a relationship, it's probably not working for you. It's better that you work more towards you being a better version of yourself. If you're somebody that wants to wake up early and work out, and you fall off the wagon, you sleep in, and you don't work out every day, and you want to keep working on yourself to make yourself healthier, do it. And that's something that you should do internally. But if someone is not seeing eye to eye with you in a relationship, if you're trying to exercise and someone's trying to go drinking, and you can see that the paths don't really cross a lot, then that's not something that you should work at. That's something you should say, you go your way and I'll go mine.
But don't force it.
No, don't force it.
It's not. So in other words, it's work because it's things you must do, but it's not grueling work, meaning don't try to force that square peg in a round hole.
Exactly. It's your responsibility to be honest with yourself that your relationship is working for you. And what you find there is compromise is so simple when it's something like, I'm not saying that, if you want to eat pizza and somebody wants to eat like Chinese food, and you should, constantly, fight. Those things you can find a middle ground for pretty easily. But that's not hard work. That's a simple compromise, and that's easy. But when someone, is, for example, at a crossroads in their life, let's say the cheating spouse, and they really just am not finding sex interesting with my wife, and I want to have sex outside of my marriage, and it's a constant problem, maybe that person should continue on going that way. Don't feel guilty. Just go find another wife. Maybe the sex hasn't been a problem. Maybe if they're finding that they are embarrassed about their new found passion for hunting, and you don't like the idea of killing animals, you want to start going towards being vegan because you have a new awakening, and people are going in their separate directions. If you can make it work. But if it hits you at your core something different, you don't want to stop your spouse that loves hunting to now be vegan. You just have to just let people grow in their own way. And if their relationship grows away from you, understand something, Mike. I'm not telling, if you do this right, you will have people in your life forever, because what lasts a long time is friendships. That stands the test of time. If we're friends and I haven't seen you, Mike, for 30 years, and I see you somewhere and I say hi to you, it'll seem like yesterday. Yeah. And that's how divorce can be. And that's how, if you do it right, it's not a failure. It's something that you could say, hey, listen, we've reached our path. It's not a grueling type work. It's just being honest about where we are and our growth and our flourishing.
So there's a factor that we've not talked about yet that impacts marriage and divorce. Children.
Okay.
How does that change either one of those aspects?
So, well, here's the thing. Yeah, I could tell you statistics of like 70% of children being born out of wedlock. But it's hard to say because we don't know what marriage is. Because if you say marriage is kind of the commitment to someone, and they didn't have a license, but they were still in wedlock, or they were still considered married if they were married our way, I don't know. What I do know is that having children and being married are two different things. People that don't think. Let's just go to our animalistic side, right? And you have one erotic night with someone you don't know, you can have a child, right? Mm-hmm. Or two good friends could say, you know what, let's just, we're not finding good, I can't find a good soulmate for someone that's good for me, so let's co-parent. Parenting is not a requirement. Marriage is not a requirement for parenting. It's a convenience, but it's not a requirement. People can adopt children without even being married at all. So I don't want the two to be, if you think about children, the idea that you have to grapple with is that having children is a very selfish kind of expectations. I would ask people this. I would say, is there any unselfish reason for having a child? And the answer was always, I want a child because I want someone to carry out my name, or I want someone to take care of me when I get old, or I want someone to, pass on my genetics and take over my business, or whatever the case may be. But it was always a selfish thing. Likewise, not having children is also a selfish kind of decision, because it's saying I want to continue to enjoy my day, and I want to continue to have my freedom, and I want to continue to have my journey through life. It's an option. It's a definite option. It's not a requirement. People don't have to have children. But what people should do is have the conversation of if you want children, what do you want children? Why do you want children? And what kind of values do you have? And to have children with someone of similar values will kind of like get you to a better place, a more flourishing life. And like, I'll give you an example for me personally. So I believe that, after 14 or 15, children kind of go into their own, almost being adult. You don't really know what they're doing. You don't know what they're thinking or who they're talking to, even at 15. So you have some time between now and, 0 and 15, that you can really be a great parent. You can pass on all your information, and you can, teach everything you know. But I would be the kind of parent personally that wants to kind of take a step back from my work and my business. And I want to be a parent that can travel the world, with my child and grow up in different environments and learn different cultures and constantly be gone, let's say for 10 years. So I have that kind of like frame of mind where I would travel the world. My child would speak many languages and eat many foods and know different cultures. And I just feel like that would be such a valuable experience for the rest of their life and their journey. But I would have no expectation that they have to take care of me when they're older, and they have to even call me and check up on me and say, hey, Dad, I'm 30 years old now. Let's go. They have no requirements for that. So I would best be suited to have someone to have children with that mirrored my expectations as a parent. If I was to get in a relationship with someone, a marriage with someone, and then they don't have those same parental standards or guidelines. They want to grow up in a traditional household with a white picket fence in a small town. It would be completely different from what I would have in mind. So, parenting is an option, and it's separate from marriage, and it could be is most likely part of marriage, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. That's a good point. And it gets down to shared values. It gets down to similar paths that you want to follow. Correct. Another question that I know comes up because we'll get back to the concept of finding the one. And before you can find the one, you need to be the one. And I think that many people would say, well, Anwar, what should I do before I get married? And you would say, well, you must discover yourself and be the one and please yourself. The question would be, is it good to be selfish? Because that feels like it could be a selfish aspiration.
Yeah. I think selfish is one of those things that are really misunderstood.
Yeah.
I want people to be selfish because it's like being selfish ultimately, I think, makes life more flourishing for yourself and for others. It's like I have put people through college, right? I have paid their way, and somebody says, "Well, why are you so selfless? You give so much." And I say to myself, "It's not true. I like to help others because I'm so selfish. It's because that person that I'm helping is going to make, my group of friends or my circle even better. And it's my circle, So if I help put them through medical school, my circle has a better, has a doctor now in it, like all my friends. Mm-hmm. And then if that person doesn't talk to me anymore and they go on and make, my communities, safer, it's my community. And if they make my state better, it's my state. If they make the world better, it's my world. So wanting the best for something, wanting selfishness for being selfish is a cornerstone of everyone being greater, because we just want our world to be better.
Wouldn't it be similar to the mindset or the thought that we get every time we fly on an airplane? Hey, if there is an emergency and the oxygen drops down, take care of yourself before you help your child, because they don't say this, but if you try to take care of your child and you're fumbling and bumbling and then you lose consciousness, both of you are impacted negatively.
Exactly. So when you think about selfishness, I want people to understand, you secure your mask before you help others secure them. How could you be somebody that is a better spouse if you haven't fully understood, like, making yourself the better version of yourself? Mm-hmm. And so being selfish is actually a good aspect of being a great spouse, because if I want to be the best version of myself, then only then could I be that. Like I said, true love is admiration. We admire those. We truly love people that we admire in life, and if you're going to be one that someone admires, it's because you've done something for yourself to get you to let people see further, to let people live their life better, because they have a living example of someone who's truly loving themselves, who's standing for something, who's following their passion, and that's admirable. So loving yourself and being selfish in a relationship by doing what's in your best interest ultimately is going to bring richer relationships to you. Mm-hmm.
Not only bring them to you, but then once they come to you, then they are richer because you're improving yourself, which then has an overflow aspect.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Really good.
So being selfless in a relationship is actually damaging to a relationship, because you lose your sense of self, and you're trying to compensate for someone else's journey through life, when you have to be responsible for your own self. Mm-hmm. It's your journey. Mm-hmm. And only then can people see something to admire in you.
The title to your book is Married Indefinitely. And it makes me think of the juxtaposition between marriage being indefinite versus forever. Can you compare those two mindsets in words, actually?
Yeah. So when when you say forever, I mean, that's a big statement, because forever in terms of many different lifetimes or afterlife, what happens, or is it this life, or is it many times during this life? Like, what is forever? We don't really know. It's a kind of perspective on it. It's not an accurate statement, though, to say that marriage is forever, because we don't know what forever really means. Mm-hmm. But what we do know for a fact is that marriage is indefinite. It could be for the rest of your lifetime as we know it, but it could be for a short amount of time. It could be for 6 months. It could be for 2 years. We don't know. But I don't want people to run from indefinite. Indefinite is a beautiful statement, because what it's saying to someone is saying, if you're married indefinite, I don't know how long we're going to flourish and grow together, but however long we're going to flourish and grow together, I want to be part of that with you. I want to have that rich relationship with you. It's a more powerful statement to say than you're married forever, because forever is just, it's impossible. That's why so many people feel that they fail in marriage. And even the people that stay together, I don't think they're flourishing a lot. A lot of people that I've talked to, I very rarely, if ever, found people flourishing, in that forever type mentality. But when people are indefinite, and they know that, hey, this is going to be a beautiful, loving, lasting relationship for an unspecified amount of time. It could be forever, because indefinite means it could be forever, but it could be for an unspecified amount of time.
And I think that it really is a flip on the word, because indefinite you feel is forever, but indefinite could mean, you know what, we're going to put this project together, and it's going to go. It's an indefinite time frame, because we don't know whether it's 1 year, 1 month, 1 day. It is not definite. It's indefinite. So it really is a mindset. And you think about something. If you knew today was your last day on Earth, would you act any differently to the people around you? Probably. And I think that's what you're saying here is, if you're in a relationship and you want it to be flourishing, what can you do to better yourself so that you're in the position to serve that person you're with? So if you are in horrible health, horrible shape, you're not in the mindset or the physical mindset to contribute to that relationship. So maybe that selfishness, being the one, is getting in great shape mentally, physically, spiritually, all of that, so that you are a good partner in that relationship.
Correct. Absolutely.
So I think a lot of people may say, okay, good, I got it. These are interesting, mindsets, and I'm going to take it under advisement. Or, oh yeah, I see some flaws in my life. I'm going to work on those. But in reality, they need some outside third-party perspectives with insights and strategies. So talk a little bit about why having a marriage coach like yourself is helpful to guide them through this journey.
So the first thing that I've noticed in all wherever I travel and wherever I do, everyone. First of all, marriage is the biggest event in a person's life. Their idea of their wedding day, whatever event they plan, nothing is bigger than a marriage in a lot of cultures that I look at. And this is deep rooted in our spirit, that you find the one. So, but it's not relevant to times. If you look at the way the turnover of relationships and marriages are today, I mean, and the lack of flourishing, you'll realize that it's completely outdated. So when you switch a mind frame to say that I now am going to have a marriage that works for me, I'm not working for my marriage is going to work for me. That is it's something that it's not in our popular culture. It's something that we're grown up knowing. We don't see movies like this. It's not like a Hollywood theme anywhere. So it gets confusing. And having a coach that understands that these principles of your marriage serving you is going to constantly ask the right questions and force the right trend of thought to be more relevant to times. So it's like, if you were always told that you should eat chocolate cake and it's going to be good for you, and then all of a sudden someone says, no, well, actually chocolate cake is not the real good thing for you. You're going to need to eat other food groups, and I'm going to coach you through it. Having a coach is that person is going to gonna let you look at yourself and be honest with yourself and honest in your relationship. So if you choose, I look at flourishing and growth as success in relationships, right? As long as you have growth and flourishing. If you choose failure in a relationship, which means the lack of growth and lack of flourishing, then it's your choice. You have to choose it, though. And I think a coach will let you understand that you're going to have a marriage that works for you, or you're going to choose failure, but it's your choice.
Yeah, because even in action, doing nothing is a choice.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You might think it's not. You might think, well, I'm not doing anything. Well, you actually chose not to do something. So
correct.
For someone,
the hardest part of, and let me tell you something, the hardest part of marriage is divorce. So by having a coach that lets the couple realize that we don't have forever, we have indefinite amount of time. And the coach is going to be, real honest to say, if this is not working out for you, you may have achieved divorce. And it's not going to be a difficult thing to do if you have someone that helps you set up your life in the sense that, hey, this is going to work for me, or I'm going to get out of it. So, they're not going to get so entangled in their finances. They're not going to get so they're going to always know that there's been people that I've known that I coach right now, that they're so entwined financially and it's such a burden that they literally say, I am just going to live out my life in misery, and that's going to be my choice because I'm so deep into it, I can't get out of it. And that's, to me, a prison sentence. It's a crime.
Well, if it's a crime and a prison sentence and you have the key to unlock that prison cell, what's the solution? What is your system and strategy, and what's the best way that someone can interact with your solution and take advantage of your coaching and your expertise?
So the first things first, we have to be honest with ourselves that marriage is indefinite. I want people to understand that it's an unforeseen amount of time, but I also want people to understand that it is the greatest thing that you can do with your life is to be married to the right person. That is the most rich relationship that you could ever have if you do it right. And why you can grow in ways like you can see things and about yourself. You can learn about your spouse and experience life in a way that you get emotional highs and lows and all in between that you could never get to if you did not take that chance. So understanding, number one, that it's indefinite. And strategies are setting expectations that are true in the beginning. For example, if this marriage is not working, I love you so much, I want you to grow without me. I want you to keep going wherever it takes you. So setting up the right marriage in the beginning is key. And then analyzing your pillars of marriage, where it's like your proudness to call someone your spouse. That's a real thing. Some people are not so proud. But your sexual relationship, your intimacy level, and your belief systems. So having someone that coaches you along the way that makes sure that all of these things line up with the standards that you met is going to be what has the most flourishing. So strategies like being honest of, in the last 6 months, how has my flourishing been? In the last 3 months, how have I seen myself grow? You know, how have I, you know, how is our sex life, and what would I like to see more of, or what are some new things that I want to try, or like our intimacy level, like what are some things that we're constantly thinking about? Our mind is always working about some things that we're missing out on. We see it on social media. We're like, I could be doing this rock climbing, and I'm here and I can't go. So being intimate about what are some things that are triggering you, and keeping that fresh, that's what a coach can help you with. And ultimately, if you have achieved divorce, if you figure like I've given everything I have, you know, children are grown, we have a great thing, and I kind of want to like move and spend some time in another country. This is what I want to do on my own. That's okay. It's your life to live, and that's not a problem. So a coach can help you set up your expectations in a way that your marriage works for you, continuously analyze your relationships, or help you analyze your own relationship so that you can see that where you're getting the most from it and what you should do to continue to grow from it. And ultimately, if you've reached divorce, if you've achieved divorce, then how you can show respect and for the other spouse who's given you so much of their life, and to love that person going forward and continue to love yourself.
Well, Anwar, it's been a pleasure talking through this movement and mindset with you. If anyone is interested in reaching out, connecting with you, and learning more about your Married Our Way agreement, what's the best way they can reach out and learn more, and then also connect with you?
You can go to marriedourway.com. I would gladly welcome information, and you can send me an email at marriedourway@gmail.com. And I will have the websites up and running for marriedindefinitely.com. And I'm here to help. And, you know, all of the information that we spoke about, it's going to be available in the book, Married Indefinitely, and the marriage agreement that you can get for free to set up your own marriage. All of it there's no cost for any of this, and you can go and take a look at that. And ultimately, if you want to become a coach, if you agree with what I say, and kind of like you want to think about it a little bit more, you can become a coach and help others maximize their own relationships.
Well, Anwar, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a pleasure getting to know you.
Thank you so much, Mike.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.